Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the DCI part number 845. This is a set of flush bolts that you're going to see very commonly used in pairs of fire-rated doors where you need to have constant latching on the inactive door that you can, of course, secure that door with bolts top and bottom, meaning you're not required to have exit devices, but you are required to have a self-latching concept on the doors. There are pairs of doors, one application that does not require the use of an automatic bolt, and that would be a pair of fire doors in a closet, electrical closet, a pair of doors that might have some utilities on the inside, where on the inside of that room it's not for typical occupancy. You know, there's no people living in the space. And the logic of those doors, the inactive door, I should say, of being able to be, of being permitted to not be self-latching, is that when the doors are opened and there's access to the room, let's say that there's someone in there working, those doors are always closed and secured when the work is done because of the nature of the room. A technician wouldn't go into a communications closet that might house other types of utilities as well, conduct the work, and then leave the doors open is the logic. Those doors will always be manned, meaning they will always be occupied during that work time, and they will always be secured at the end of that work time. So it's permissible, like in a condo building where you've got an MEP room, mechanical, electrical, plumbing sort of room on every floor. Those can have a pair of doors. The inactive door can be manual flush bolts. But that is the only exception to that situation. You can have a pair of fire doors in a hallway adjoining two rooms. I think of a property, a building, a campus in Chicago that has two buildings. Well, there's a tunnel that connects the two of them that people can go, between the two buildings without having to go outside. And there's double doors in that tunnel apparatus. And they had an exit device on one door, and the other door had constant latching bolts. And you'll see that application as well. I've seen it in an exit door of a condominium building's parking garage. I've seen it. Fire doors. One door has an exit device, or does not have an exit device, but they're fire doors, and they need to both, of course, latch. When you're running a situation like an 845 DCI set, it'd be very typical to see a coordinator as well, because the inactive door does need to close and latch first before the lock set or the exit device comes and tries to close against it. So you'll see an 845 along with a coordinator, of course, that DCI provides. Now, the 845 is comprised of the 805 top bolt. The 805, the top bolt, basically what it features is a latching style bolt. Okay, you get the idea of how that works. And every single time the door closes, the latch of the bolt is going to hit the strike plate, allowing it to latch into the header. Okay, you will deactivate that simply by pushing the button in the edge of the door. That will retract it. Okay, the bottom bolt is a constant latching automatic. Well, it's called an automatic flush bolt, meaning every time that the door closes, this trigger will be pushed, throwing the bolt down. So the bottom line is this. The inactive door closes, the top latches, and then we'll keep the door latched. At that moment, before the active door closes, the only latching is the top latch. As the active door closes, then the 840 is what this one is called. You can buy them separately. 805 for the top, 840 for the bottom, and when you buy them together, they're an 845. When the active door closes, it will push that trigger, and now you have latching top and bottom, and that's how that works. So if you are in that tunnel application and they need to bring material through there constantly that's larger than the clear width of one door, they will open that active door, and then just with the push of the finger, be able to get the inactive door closed and then swung open. Material is brought through, doors are let go, doors closed, and because there's a coordinator, inactive door closes, then the active door closes, everything is bolted. And that's the concept. You never see these in residential applications, but I have had people order the 805 because they want, I think it was the 840. They wanted the inactive door to only be in the latched position automatically when the active door was closed, but otherwise to be open. So the difference was just flipping a manual bolt up and down. They wanted an automatic procedure to it, but that was very atypical. That was the only time that actually occurred in a residential application. Now, this set is in the US4 finish, and US4 stands for satin brass. Specifically, they call it US4. They don't call it 606. 606 also means satin brass. However, it might be okay to call this 606. That's because the trim is made of brass. So you could call, the bottom line is US4 and 606, they both mean satin brass. US4 doesn't tell us the base material. 606 tells us the base material is brass in this case. So you can call this 606. DCI uses the significantly older US system. So you've got your cover plates. You can slap those on there and see how they're going to look. And what makes this super simple is all of the interior components, the internal components I should say, are the same, and then all that DCI has to do is produce trim sets, okay, in different finishes. So that's what US4 is going to look like. You'll notice that it's labeled, that it has visual evidence of the fact that it's permissible to use on a fire-rated assembly. Okay. That's what your bottom is going to look like in the US4 finish. Let's put those trim plates aside, and we'll go over the rest of the trim package now, I suppose. You're going to have the strike that will go into the header. Then you're going to have your strike for the sill, and then you're going to have your rub plate or scar plate. So that is your strike that's going to go in the header. That will literally install up into the header, and that bolt is of course going to make contact with the face of the lip. So the header of your hollow metal frame needs to be prepped for this strike plate. That is likely 2 3/4 tall. Right, 2 3/4 tall. Overall width about 1 7/8". The important part of these strikes is that they're not measured in overall width. 1 1/8" there, they're measured from the center line of the screw holes to the edge of the lip. That appears to be about 1 3/8" or so. These face plates are going to be 6 3/4 by 1, which is a typical size, 6 3/4 by 1. Your strike for your sill, 2 1/4, should be 15/16. Yeah, it is. And then your rub plate, that height is 1 1/4, and it's overall about 1 11/16. Now what that's used for, the rub plate, is this will attach to the edge of the active door, and every time that active door closes, it's the rub plate that's making contact with the spring-loaded trigger on the 840 bottom bolt. Okay, so that your inactive door is not taking the wear and tear of that. You could have a wood door, right? So you would put that plate that's on there, and it's probably about 50 thousandths thick. Okay, so that's how that is going to work. Sorry, it's 70 thousandths. 0.067. 0.067 is the thickness. Now that covers the exposed portion of all of the hardware. You're also going to get your brackets, and these brackets are going to be Well, okay, let's back up. I said you could have a wood door with that rub plate. If you had a wood door, you wouldn't use the 845. You would use the 945, and they do still have a rub plate. The 945 is appropriate for installation in wood doors, whereas the 845 is for metal doors. So you wouldn't. While you could force a pair of 845s to work on a steel door, they would not be actually considered correct for a metal door application. Now, these two brackets that I had mentioned earlier, these will install into the channel, the top channel, or the top assembly, the top rail of the door, and the bottom rail of the door. The bottom line is these square preparations are going to keep the bolts from spinning, and they're going to look like that. So if you have an inverted bottom channel in your door, you'll get up under the door and you'll attach that so your bolt will ride down and through. And then conversely, in the top of your door, you'll need to have a preparation for that to work as well. And you want to prevent that from rotating. Otherwise, this will unthread eventually from the chassis of the bolt, rendering the unit inoperative. Now, if you have a pair of doors, you're going to have ordered them from the factory already prepped for this material. So you're not going to be field modifying these. You're not going to be field modifying a fire-rated door. Your distributor of the door may be able to prep the inactive door in their shop for this material, at which point they would very likely want to have these parts so that they can integrate them into the preparation procedure to receive a set of 845s. But your hollow metal manufacturer will likely just create the structure on their own based on the templating that you would provide them at the time of order. If we were to order these doors from you, we wouldn't need these plates. We would manufacture the doors so that they would be compliant with use for the 845. The factory will either make their own or however they'll do it, but they'll bracket it correctly. Now, there is, and when I make a video on the steel door version or the metal door version of these bolts, it's easy because we really don't have to talk a lot about the preparation aspect or how to mortise them. In a wood door application, you know, in the field, you wouldn't be, it's not permissible to field machine fire-rated doors because the amount of preparation that's permitted on fire-rated doors, wood or metal, is very clear and well-defined and rather limited. There's not much you can do when it comes to cutting, drilling, things of that nature. You absolutely couldn't install these without technically violating the integrity of the fire rating of the opening. So there are two links below this video titled Product Information. One is an older version, one's a newer version. They're basically the same, but they're different enough where I wanted them both listed. And there is an overview of the bolts. Self-latching flush bolts will engage the curved frame lip strike as the inactive door closes, locking the inactive door. The top bolt will remain locked until the plunger is depressed on the face of the bolt. The bottom bolt, an automatic flush bolt, will engage the sill and frame strike only when the active door is closed and will be released when the active door is opened. And that is the overview of what we had discussed earlier. They're also handicap compliant. They have an override feature, and an override feature is interesting because what will happen is in the event that the trigger cannot when the trigger is depressed, the bolt will not travel down. It has an override feature in that as I'm limiting with my palm and then pushing the trigger, this override feature prevents damage. Now, why would you need that? Well, dust, dirt, and debris will get down into the sill and cause that to happen. If there's some sort of severe misalignment in the top latching bolt, you know, it just won't engage. So the bottom line is nothing really tragic is going to happen there. It will, of course, has an override feature as well, but I don't see why that might come into play because, you know, it'll just depress. And it will latch or it won't. But it does have an override feature as well if something were to happen to the bottom mechanism, which at that point I suppose it would already be broken. Low closing force, that's important. Patented free-floating cams require less than 5 pounds of closing force of the active door to extend both top and bottom bolts. That's good because you need to have enough, you need to be able to close your door with your door closer, but not present so much resistance as a result of this trigger that your active door equipped with its closer can't push that closed. Adjustable bolt head rods. Bolts can be vertically adjusted for unusual clearances, floor or head conditions. An adjustment of 1 1/4 is available for the 845 and 1/2 inch for the 945. What they're saying there is obviously you can thread that to suit your application. You can make it project a little bit further. An adjustment of 1 1/4 is available. Okay, so, you know, that's just going to be how much you can thread this. If you have to thread your bottom bolt to the point where you have to travel a certain distance for the bolt to engage, you might have a different problem. Your undercut might be greater than what's permitted for a fire-rated door, and the amount of the engagement of the bolt into the sill strike may not be adequate for a fire-rated door. You do have to have a minimum projection for that to be compliant. Finishes, they can do US3 polished brass, US4 satin brass, US10 satin bronze, US10B oil rub bronze, US26 polished chrome, US2060 satin chrome, US32, which is polished stainless, and US32D, which is satin stainless. And they do convert them to the BHMA standard finishes, 605, 606, etc. for all of that. Now, there's a link to the template. And the template is included with the paperwork, and that's what you would need to pass off to your door manufacturer. And this will serve as 3 templates, apparently. Your 840, which is going to be your bottom bolt. Your 805, which is your top bolt, and then your 8BFB, which would be a fire bolt. If you were doing a bolt at the top of the door only, you could do this latching bolt at the top of the door only, and that would be permissible with the inclusion of a fire bolt down below in lieu of the bottom, the bottom 840 series bolt. And that is basically, the fire bolt is basically a device that when a particular temperature is hit, that bottom bolt installed in the active door will then, in the inactive door, will then fire and shoot into the active door, securing it down below. So that would allow you to avoid the inclusion of the bottom bolt, which would mean you would certainly still need a coordinator. But you would have, I suppose, I don't see where there would be a convenience factor in the sense of that bottom fire bolt, except, however, your client may wish to not have a bottom bolt because they do not want anything pierced into the floor. Hospitals would be, of course, the application that I'm thinking of, where there are not strikes drilled into a floor. Those are areas where, you can't clean very well a hole drilled in the floor, so they're going to avoid holes drilled in the floor, so therefore avoid the entire bottom bolt altogether. And you'll still get the latching capability. Now, the installation gives you the dimensional properties of everything. What's important to note is these would be called 12-inch flush bolts, and that is a standard way by which to determine the size of a flush bolt. When you're dealing with flush bolts, you certainly need to know the height and the width of your bolt, of your faceplate, but you need to know the top of the door or the bottom of the door to the center of the faceplate, and that's where 12-inch comes in. You're going to see a 12-inch flush bolt. Okay, what are they referring to? Top or bottom of the door to the center of the faceplate. Now, 12-inch would be standard for your 6/8 doors, your 7/0 doors. It would certainly not be correct for taller doors because physically the doors get too tall for you to reach up and grab a flip turn on a manual bolt or push the trigger in to retract that latching bolt at the top. So what will happen in those instances is you'll go with an 18-inch or a 24-inch or a 30-inch or a 36-inch. You get the picture? They just changed this rod to a longer rod. This is 1/4 threaded rod is the size of that. When you're doing these bolts from DCI, you'll need to order it with a longer top rod should you have an unusual door height. And I would say that certainly anything taller than 7 foot, you need to start to look at a longer bolt. So if 12 inches is your guide for 7 foot, if you're going to 8 foot, make it a 24-inch and then add accordingly. If it's 7'6", make it an 18-inch. 9/0, obviously you're going to be dealing with you know, a 36-inch top rod. Looking at the installation instructions, they do show the orientation of your top and bottom guides, what those are supposed to look like. Okay. Depending on if you have a flush top or an inverted top channel. The bottom, you're always going to have an inverted bottom channel in hollow metal. That I would tell you. So an inverted bottom channel would be easy for you to accessorize, or I should say to install the hardware with the guide, because you would just get underneath there and prep that hole should you need to, which I doubt you would, and then attach your guide. Shows where the active door strike is located as well. It does have that curved little lip that would be installed, of course, on the egress side, the push side, or the side that's going to make contact with the trigger on your bottom bolt. The important part of this document is, again, because it's a fire door, it won't be a prep you'll do in the field. Your door manufacturer will be doing that, and this document would need to go to them so for you to accurately convey how the door needs to be prepped. Okay, not much else to say about that. They're, you know, I've prepped for this material. If it's a manufacturer of hollow metal doors, they won't be cutting and grinding. They will be shearing and punching with tools to do this work. And it's very simple and straightforward. Now, there is a link below this video to the product catalog, which will give you an overview of all of the bolt-related products from DCI. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the DCI products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Very nice quality product from DCI. DCI is an independent company. They are not under the corporate umbrella of a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation. I'm not saying that that's good nor bad. I suppose someone gets the impression that being under the corporate umbrella is a bad thing. That's not that may be the truth in some cases. I can certainly point to one case in particular where it does not affect the operation of the company that is under the corporate umbrella. They work flawlessly. DCI is an old school traditional type company, meaning you dial your phone, someone picks up, and if that person can't answer the phone, they go get the other person who can. It's just simple and straightforward. And they do a great job with shipping material out right away. If you have more than an occasional need for trim and auxiliary hardware, door stops, roller latches, obviously flush bolts, coordinators, you'll want to take a look at DCI because they are a well-oiled machine. They get the order, they ship it out. Sometimes the same day, almost always the next day. And their inventory is good, deep, broad, and they are simple, straightforward, no-nonsense type operation with a very exceptional quality product. Any questions on the DCI? This is the 845 set of bolts or any other DCI products. Please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.